Welcome to our channel. Today, we are diving deep into a mystery that happens every single night while you're unconscious. You might think your heart just beats a steady rhythm until you wake up, but the reality is so much more complex. We're talking about the night shift of your cardiovascular system. Most people obsess over salt, or they stress about exercise, which are critical, sure, but they completely ignore the 8-hour period where their blood pressure is supposed to reset. Joining me is Dr. Somnos, a specialist who looks at the intersection of sleep and heart health. Doctor, is sleep just downtime for the heart, or is there something more mechanical going on under the hood?
It is absolutely not just downtime. In fact, think of it as a critical maintenance mode. When you drift off, your body isn't just powering down, it's actively shifting gears. In the cardiovascular world, we look for a specific phenomenon called dipping. In a healthy individual, your blood pressure shouldn't just stay stable. It should drop by about 10 to 20% compared to your daytime levels. This is the body taking its foot off the gas pedal. If that drop doesn't happen, if the pressure stays high while you dream, the engine never cools down, and that causes immense mechanical wear and tear over time.
That's a fascinating way to put it, taking the foot off the gas pedal. But let's break that down, because I think most people assume blood pressure is just a static number, right? You go to the doctor, they put the cuff on, and you get a reading. But you're saying there's this dynamic rhythm. What exactly is controlling that gas pedal? Is it the brain? The heart itself? Because if I'm asleep, I'm certainly not stressed out about work or traffic, so why would the pressure stay up? What is the mechanism failing there?
Great question. It's all about the autonomic nervous system, the master controller. You have two main branches, the sympathetic, which is your fight-or-flight system, think adrenaline, high alert, high pressure, and the parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. During the day, the sympathetic system dominates because you need to move and react. But at night, as you enter deep sleep, the sympathetic tone should withdraw and the parasympathetic vagal tone should take over. It's a literal biological switch. If your sleep is fragmented, or if you have sleep apnea, that switch gets stuck. The sympathetic system keeps firing, keeping your vessels tight and your pressure high.
So it's like leaving the lights on in the factory when everyone has gone home. The machinery is still humming. Now, I've heard the term non-dipper thrown around in cardiology circles. Is this what that refers to? And how dangerous is it really? Because I feel like a lot of listeners might think, okay, so my pressure is a little high at 2 a.m., who cares? I'm asleep. But you're suggesting this nocturnal pressure is actually more predictive of problems than the pressure we measure when we are wide awake in the office.
Exactly, you hit the nail on the head. We call them non-dippers, and frankly, it is more dangerous. Clinical data suggests that nighttime blood pressure is a much stronger predictor of cardiovascular events, stroke, heart attack, kidney failure, than daytime pressure. Think about it. Your vessels are evolved to have that rest period. If they are stretched taut 24 hours a day, the endothelial lining, the inner skin of the blood vessels, starts to dysfunction. It becomes stiff. It loses the ability to produce nitric oxide, which acts as a relaxant. You are essentially baking rigidity into your vascular system while you sleep.
That is a terrifying image, baking rigidity into the system. I want to pivot to something you mentioned earlier about kidney failure, because this is the part that really blew my mind when I was reading your research. We usually associate kidneys with hydration or detox, but you're linking sleep, blood pressure, and salt? How on earth does a bad night of sleep prevent my body from handling the salt I ate at dinner? Is there a direct line between my brain waking up and my kidneys functioning?
There is a very direct line. It's called pressure natriuresis. Under normal conditions, if you eat a salty meal, your blood pressure rises slightly to push that excess sodium through the kidneys and into the urine. It's a flushing mechanism. This process is highly active at night. Your body uses the nocturnal period to dump the excess sodium load. However, if you don't get into those deep stages of sleep, or if your sympathetic nervous system is hammering away, the kidneys constrict. They hold on to the sodium, and where sodium goes, water follows, so you wake up volume overloaded, puffy, and with higher pressure.
Wow, so poor sleep literally makes you retain salt, which holds water, which increases pressure, which probably makes it harder to sleep. It sounds like a vicious feedback loop. And I assume this volume overload isn't just making us look puffy in the mirror, it's physically stretching the heart chambers. I mean, the heart is a pump. If the plumbing is backed up with extra fluid volume because the kidneys took the night off, the pump has to work harder, right?
Precisely. It is a hydraulic nightmare. The heart has to pump against higher resistance. We call that afterload. Over time, the heart muscle thickens to cope with this constant strain, leading to left ventricular hypertrophy. And here's the kicker. This sodium retention makes you salt sensitive. People who sleep poorly often find that their blood pressure reacts much more violently to salt intake than people who sleep well. You effectively lose your buffer. So a bag of Cheetos that might not hurt a good sleeper becomes a hypertensive crisis for a poor sleeper.
It's amazing how interconnected this all is. It's not just sleep and heart. It's sleep, nervous system, kidneys, salt, volume. I want to touch on the morning surge. I've heard that heart attacks and strokes are statistically most likely to happen in the early hours of the morning, right after waking up. Is that related to this dipping phenomenon? Or rather, the transition from this high-pressure night state into the waking state?
It is intimately related. Even in healthy people, there is a natural spike in cortisol and adrenaline when you wake up. It helps you get out of bed. We call this the morning surge. Now imagine you are a non-dipper. Your pressure has been high all night. You start your day at a baseline of, say, 150/90, and then you add the morning surge on top of that. You are pushing the system into the red zone immediately. That sudden shear stress on the arterial plaques can cause them to rupture, leading to a clot. That is why 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. is the danger zone.
That is incredibly sobering. It really reframes the importance of a good mattress in a dark room, doesn't it? It's not just comfort, it's survival. Now, we have to talk about the elephant in the room regarding sleep quality: sleep apnea. We know it involves snoring and stopping breathing, but mechanically, what is happening to the blood pressure dial when someone stops breathing? Is it just the lack of oxygen, or is there a mechanical pressure change in the chest?
It's a double whammy. First, mechanically. When your airway closes, you try to inhale against a closed throat. This creates massive negative pressure in your chest cavity, literally sucking blood into the heart and stretching the walls. Second, and more potently, the hypoxia, or low oxygen. When oxygen levels drop, the chemoreceptors in your carotid arteries panic. They scream at the brain, "We are dying." The brain responds by blasting the system with sympathetic nerve activity to wake you up and breathe. This causes massive repeated spikes in blood pressure, dozens, sometimes hundreds of times a night.
Hundreds of times a night. So instead of a smooth, dipping curve, your blood pressure chart would look like a jagged mountain range. And I imagine this doesn't just go away the second you wake up. If you've spent 8 hours in this panicked, high adrenaline state, does that carry over into the daytime? Are we seeing patients with essential hypertension that is really just carryover sleep apnea hypertension?
You are absolutely correct. This is a key point. The sympathetic nervous system has a memory, so to speak. If you overstimulate it all night, it stays upregulated during the day. We see many patients diagnosed with drug-resistant hypertension, meaning they are on 3 or 4 blood pressure meds and it is still high. When we treat their sleep apnea, suddenly their daytime pressure drops and we can take them off medication. We were treating the symptom, the pressure, but missing the root cause, the nocturnal struggle for air.
That is a massive revelation for anyone struggling with blood pressure who feels like they've tried everything: diet, exercise, pills. But if the sleep isn't there, the foundation is rotten. So, practically speaking, for our listeners who want to ensure they are dipping correctly, what is the actionable advice? Is it just about treating apnea, or are there other ways to encourage that parasympathetic shift at night?
Treating apnea is step 1. But beyond that, we need to curate the wind down.
You cannot go from high-stress work emails or intense video games straight to bed and expect your nervous system to switch gears instantly. You need a buffer zone. Cooling the body temperature helps trigger the dip. Avoid heavy meals late at night. Remember the salt issue? If you load the kidneys with sodium right before bed, you prevent the dip because the body stays active trying to process it. And finally, light exposure. Blue light suppresses melatonin, and melatonin actually helps lower blood pressure. It all comes back to rhythm. We are rhythmic creatures living in a 24-hour world, and we can't cheat the system. I love the idea of the buffer zone, mechanically preparing the engine to idle before shutting it off. This has been an eye-opening conversation, Dr. Somnos. I think I'm going to look at my pillow a little differently tonight. It's not just soft, it's a medical device. Thank you so much for breaking down the biomechanics of the night shift for us. My pleasure. The key takeaway is this: sleep is not passive. It is an active, metabolic, and hemodynamic state that resets your cardiovascular survival clock. If you protect your sleep, you protect your heart, your kidneys, and your arteries. Don't ignore the pressure of the night. It dictates the health of your day. Thanks for having me.